Welcome back to this week's AMT Fresh Produce Market Report made possible by Villa Crop Protection. This week we take a closer look at regional potato production and how it could influence prices, while butternut and pumpkin and watermelon prices crash due to higher volumes and lower demand. But remember, the weather might still have the final say. All that and more in this week's episode, so make sure to stay tuned. Over the past week, the potato price dropped by 8% to R47.36 per 10 kg. Tomatoes also decreased, trading 6% lower on R10.40 per kilogram, while onions continued on its downward trend on R39.21 per 10 kg. Carrots traded 20% higher on R4.29. Peppers increased by 17% to R21.98, while cabbages increased by 5% to R1.61. Sweet potatoes increased to R6.85. Spinach dropped to R2.52, while butternuts dropped by another massive 30% to R6.35 last week. Pumpkins also showed a significant price drop and decreased by 23% to R5.85. Garlic jumped by 7% to R43.65. Green beans decreased to R10.14, while cucumbers increased to R16.75. With world-class solutions like Masterlock, tailored for South African conditions, Villa helps you manage risk and increase productivity with research-backed confidence. Overall, the market remains under pressure with limited demand, though a few commodities like carrots and peppers provided some positive movement last week. Potato prices dropped, as was mentioned last week, due to weaker demand and slightly lower quality. We expect another decrease this week as we're mid-month and quality remains subdued. Some Limpopo producers are expected to finish harvesting over the next 2 weeks, although several will likely continue into late November and can finish later than usual. Natal and Vryburg should start supplying the markets over the next 2 weeks, followed by Pietersburg in early December. While larger potatoes are currently fetching slightly better prices, overall demand remains limited, keeping prices under pressure. However, rainfall in Limpopo could temporarily lift prices if supply dips, though that seems unlikely for now. Tomato volumes are likely to increase while retail orders are slowing down, which could push prices lower this week again. A price recovery may follow towards the end of the month as demand improves again. Still, keep an eye on the weather. Heavy rainfall can quickly disrupt supply, and tomato prices are extremely sensitive to these type of conditions. Carrot prices spiked last week after rainfall limited supply. That trend could continue early this week but may reverse quickly if volumes increase towards the weekend, especially given the current weak demand. Butternut and pumpkin prices also dropped sharply, almost inevitably, as higher volumes and lower demand drove these prices significantly downward over the past week. Please leave me a comment if there is a specific commodity we can look at in one of our next episodes. Moving over to the fruit markets, however, bananas increased to R11.75 per kilogram, apples traded slightly lower on R13.07 and pears higher on R9.85. In the citrus market, oranges moved sideways to R8.51, lemons increased to R8.30, naartjies dropped to R8.07 and grapefruits traded 30% lower on R4.91 per kilogram. Avocados moved 5% higher to R26.11, while table grapes dropped by 5% to R94.91 per kilogram. Pineapples remained on R11.86, blueberries decreased to R37, while watermelons dropped to R1.26 per kilogram last week. Over the last 4 weeks, we saw watermelon volumes picking up sharply and therefore driving prices sharply lower. However, the big one now to keep an eye on is the table grape markets, with volumes that can start to increase any week now and put a lot of pressure on the current market price as we head into December. Banana prices can also dip slightly in December and especially in January next year, but a price recovery in February and March is also likely as volumes will then start to decrease, driving these prices higher. That's your AMT Weekly Fresh Produce Outlook made possible by Villa Crop Protection. Remember to follow AMT on all social media platforms for daily market updates, and we'll see you next week with the latest market trends.